has come to an end, or well, it's at least coming to an end, and it's been a very busy year from a smartphone perspective. We've had quite a few launches, there have been new brands entering the market, and we're going to take a look at the phones that impressed us the most across the price segments. So let's start with the budget segment, which is the most popular one in India, and let's take a look at which was the phone that really stood out in the segment.
So Shruti, isn't the budget segment all about Redmi now? Everybody's talking just Redmi.
Yeah, I would say it is about Redmi, and even the new players who are coming in are really pitching themselves as Redmi challengers. I think Xiaomi took a new approach this year where they had a Pro variant for all their phones. Earlier it was just Redmi Note 4, now we had a Redmi Note 5 Pro. And that really worked for them. In fact, they're still continuing to sell that, even though the Redmi Note 6 Pro is already here. And it's basically made them the largest smartphone manufacturer in the country, and primarily driven by one sub-brand. Yes, the Redmi brand is what has helped them, reach this top position in the Indian market. And in fact, they've been holding on to this despite, newer players coming in, offering lower pricing, much better specs, in fact, at times compared to the Xiaomi phones. But Xiaomi still continues to dominate. So in this segment, who do you think are the competitors to Redmi? So I think one player that really proved to be a competitor this year was the Realme brand. Now it's a sub-brand of Oppo. Oppo is technically the parent, though they don't like to be called as Oppo, Realme by Oppo. But the Realme 2 Pro was, I think, a big winner on their part. Even the Realme 1, Realme 2, not so much. Realme 2 Pro really impressed because it offered very good specifications and under 14,000, which is where Xiaomi is now starting to play. They're starting to push the price mark from, say, 10,000 to 12,000. It's more around the 14,000 price mark, and Realme really came in pretty heavy in that. I guess 2018 is also the year that, primarily because of Redmi and these other budget players, the Indian players like Micromax, Intex, Carbon, Cellcon, they've all pretty much been wiped out of that segment. Micromax is trying to make a comeback with its new Infinity series, but it's going to be a very tough market, and we need to see how people will look at other brands, because Redmi, Realme, I think has 60% of the market together. Redmi, I think, has majority of the market. Samsung, of course, because of its big base, continues to do well because it can push those J series phones out, even if the specifications are not that great. I would say even Asus made a comeback of sorts with its Max Pro M1 series. In fact, they have the M2 out already, which shows how aggressive they are with this market. And I think another player that deserves some mention is HMD Global. I think they've been doing a pretty good job. The phones have a good quality. They're not just playing on specs. And if you want pure Android, that's one of the... And it's also cashing in on this huge goodwill that Nokia still has in the market. Yes, of course. A lot of people, just buy because it's a Nokia phone. They trust that brand, right? Yeah, and they're not doing a bad job. They've really improved their camera. And of course, the software is stock Android, so you're going to get Android Pie very quickly, which is in fact, and they've been delivering on that. And Nokia 5.1 Plus really impressed us. Even the 6.1, 6.1 Plus were both very impressive phones. And after the price cut, they seem, much more of a good choice to actually consider for users. So it's also been a year when the price points have moved up. So the 19,999 is the latest, 10,000 rupees, right? Like a lot of people who were earlier buying a 10,000 rupee Moto phone have progressed to buy maybe a 20,000 rupee phone. So the general progression of the ASP also means that the mid-range is now doing quite well. You have your phones that are selling, well in the, let's say, 50 to 30,000 price bracket. I think one brand, of course, which has made its mark here is OnePlus. They've really shown how you can capture this kind of segment, which is not easy to do in India, because customers, and it's not about whether customers have the ability to purchase it. I think customers are just generally more cautious whether they want to spend more than 20,000. And we've also seen other brands try and enter this. Of course, Huawei has made some impact in that segment, right? I think Honor Play was one of their more successful. Of course, Honor is a sub brand. But Honor Play was one of their more successful phones because of the emphasis on gaming, the kind of specifications it offered, the camera. And of course, we have Oppo and Vivo who've been playing in this segment with the selfie camera and catering to a very specific segment. Interestingly, Xiaomi does not do all that well in that segment, though it's holding the bottom layer very well, but it has not really been able to push the price points. It's got Mi Mix series and all. It doesn't sell well in India at all. No, it hasn't done that well. In fact, this year the only flagship by Xiaomi was the Poco, which is the Poco F1. Which is basically countering the OnePlus. Yeah, and they made that very evident in terms of the advertising as well. Poco F1 was a good phone, I would say, but still not perfect. I would say it still needs a lot of work. Though yes, of course, they're relying on the goodwill of the Xiaomi brand to kind of push it. But OnePlus really set the standard, I think, in terms of the camera performance. Especially if I compare it with OnePlus 5T last year, because I wasn't that impressed by the camera. And this time when I tried the OnePlus 6, I thought, wow, they've really outdone themselves with the camera.
Purely on clarity, I would say it's one of the best phones. It's fast. It's like, see, it's a phone that does everything you would expect from an Android.
Yeah, exactly.
And it gives it and gives that performance to you at half the price of, let's say, the flagship Android phone.
Exactly. So let's also talk about the flagships. Are flagships even relevant anymore?
I think so. There's a lot of people who don't want to be seen with a cheap phone. I think that is a big market for the flagships, because purely on performance, at least in the Android space, I don't think, like, you have a OnePlus at the end of the day. You don't really need to buy a Samsung Galaxy S9 or a Note 9. But there are a lot of people who actually want to say that, okay, I don't want a cheap phone. I want to show that I have enough money or made enough money to buy a top-end phone. And because of that, that also means the price elasticity is not a big factor in the top end. So people who can spend 80K can also spend 1,10,000. And Apple has realized this very well, and they have pushed their price points way ahead of 1 lakh and successfully to a certain extent.
So what would you say would be your choice in the terms of flagships? Because I think for a lot of people, Note 9 has really stood out. And
So I think the Apple XS Max is a very good phone. Amazing camera, superb performance, and absolutely no issues, right? But then the Note 9 is a superb flagship. Now compare the two, and you have the stylus that comes in between, which gives the Note 9 a immediate bump on any other phone in the market, right? Because that stylus is not there in any other phone, and I'm sure even if somebody tries, it's not going to be as good as the S Pen, which Samsung has, and that's a huge jump on anything else in the market. Then look at performance. The Note 9 is very good. It's got a good camera, so it stacks up, I would say, equally with the best Apple phone. But then it has the stylus, which makes it win the race.
And let's not forget that 4000 mAh battery. They brought back the original feeling of the Note. When Note phones were launched, they were the ones that started the whole big screen. They're the ones that started the big battery at a time when Androids had terrible battery. And Note 9 for that matter.
And the iPhone still struggles when it comes to battery, especially in the kind of networks that we have here. Our phones are constantly trying to latch onto the network, and there is no network. Android phone, iPhone, anything, you are going to run out of juice by the end of the day. So you need 4000 mAh.
So let's also talk about how it was the year of the camera phones. Pixel has been trying to push this idea that all you need is a great camera. We saw Huawei come in very strong with the P20 Pro and the Mate 20. Which is Mate 20 Pro, sorry, which has triple camera. We even saw 4 cameras. Samsung tried to do
4
that.
Cameras. And next year you're going to see 5 cameras. Like,
that's what
LG's already announced that it's going to come up with a 5 camera phone.
Nokia has also been rumored that it will be 5 cameras. So do we really need all these cameras?
I don't think so. I don't think people have still mastered what they will do with the 1 camera or even a dual camera. So so this is something that, again, you want to show the world, hey, I can afford a 5 camera phone. That's it. I don't think there is something particularly great that you're going to end up doing with a 5 camera phone.
Exactly. And I've tried the Pixel. I've not tried the Huawei phones, but I've tried the Pixel 3, and they're doing something really fantastic with a single lens. My iPhone is great, I would say, gives great shots, but I think Pixel really pushed the edge. And one of the things that I've noticed is that this year it's going to become less about hardware and cameras.
It's going to be more
about software.
And
which people are not really talking about. I mean, I know companies talk about the AI and all of that, but a lot of those great pictures that you're getting is because the camera software has also improved drastically.
So I would say that what you saw with the Pixel this year is going to become standard on Android next year. So like I would say the Google camera, so to say, in pure Android phones is going to be way better because the software is going to be on steroids.
And that's what we're hoping to see in 2019. So 2018 was also the year where smartphone companies tried to reduce your dependence on smartphone screens, and we saw both Google and Apple introduce features which would help you curb some of this. Of course, Android now has digital well-being. Apple has screen time. So Nanda, do you think that's helped? Do you think that's a good direction?
It's helped me. At least I know. How much of trouble I'm in. For instance, yesterday I realized that I'm putting in 8 hours every week on the screen. That's not a great thing. But the problem is I have switched off the limits because I need to keep on going ahead. Maybe it works for my kid, it doesn't work for me. There is a lot of self-control that needs to be there, and that is what Apple and Google are trying to push, telling you that boss, you are in trouble because you are putting in too much screen time, and we actually don't know what is the long-term effect of the screen time on your brain. Interestingly, Ericsson is talking about something called mental obesity. Which is going to hit all of us in a couple of years, and then we might have to go to mental gyms to train ourselves to remember stuff better. And this is happening primarily because we're so dependent on the smartphone.
Yeah, even I would say it's helped me, but I think for some of us reviewers, the problem tends to be that we have so many screens that we're looking at all of them at the same time. And yeah, sure, my iPhone will block me out of, say, Instagram, Twitter, but I'll always go in
you
and
have
reset.
options.
At least I reset WhatsApp, like you said, we reset WhatsApp for all day because we need those messages. And in fact, we're spending more than 8 hours on a screen, because if you count the screen at work and
absolutely.
everything else, it's 16 hours on a screen. So which is, but let's see how this improves in 2022.
I hope it improves.
For me, it has.
Although if it works well, next year we won't be talking about smartphones.
I don't think that'll happen so easily.
Yeah, I think on that note, I think we can call it wraps. Here's looking forward to a great 2019.